Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. Of course, we've now know as far as the PPP is concerned, and their stance seems to have changed after the CEC, the Council of Common Interests meeting. And now, as far as the PPP is concerned, they've categorically said that there should be elections within 90 days. We also saw Sherry Rahman's statement where she said that the 2023 census as controversial. We'll be talking about the ramifications of this on the overall political process as far as the allies and their earlier government was concerned. Are there these new differences that have emerged, and what does this mean for the upcoming elections as a whole? A little later on, we'll also be talking about the letter of the G20 to the G20 countries regarding the violations in Kashmir and India's decision to go ahead with the G20 summit. I have with me today Agha Iqrar Haroon, who's a political analyst. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Barrister Shabbir, who is an advocate of the Supreme Court. Thank you for being with us. A little later on, we'll be joined by other guests. Agha Sahab, like us, we were earlier also talking about that these differences that have now emerged between, what is the stance of the PPP and what was earlier a joint stance by the allies. Am I right when I say that, agreeing to the new census and, of course, the ramifications of that being a likely delay in the electoral process as a whole?
Thank you so much, Mahrukh. If you remember, we discussed in detail about the CCI meeting, and I was of the view that once you accepted the census, you will have to go for delimitation, and this is also the constitutional requirement as the election within the 90 days. This is very unfortunate. I cannot understand. This is still beyond my perception. Why did all important political parties and the then provincial government had the same stance in CCI meeting to accept the census results, and that is, they knew it, that once you accept, you will have to go through the delimitation, and that will take time. This is, I cannot understand what games they are playing with the people, actually. And if you remember, in one of your show, my opinion was that only the People's Party is in a position who can go to election immediately, and People's Party wants election because it has a very strong base camp in Sindh. And some other parties, I don't want to name them, they are reluctant, or you can say they are avoiding the election. At least perceivably they are avoiding, if they are not politically. So this is very unfortunate. They are making a mockery of people. They are making the mockery of the constitution. Once you have accepted the census, then why you are now putting your pressure on ECP to have an election at the 90 days? Because it is not the Election Commission of Pakistan.
But Agha Sahab, is it about putting pressure on the Election Commission, do you think, or is it largely, hyperbole, politicking? What can one call it?
Real politicking.
Okay.
Actually, this is the best word I can use with your permission, because they knew everything. No, they are simply having their face saving, asking ECP, no, you must go to election within 90 days. This is not possible. At least in 90 days, not possible. It may be 4 months. It may be 5 months even. So this is, I cannot understand what is going on. Why political parties are making fun of people like you and me, and we are thinking about whether we are going for the election or no. And that is also hampering our economy also.
Uncertainty. And
exactly, uncertainty, particularly for investors.
Let me go to Barrister Shabbir Shah. Barrister Sahab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Overall, as far as the issue of elections, and we saw what happened as far as the debate between the letter of the president, and then of course we saw the EC of course respond to that, the meeting that didn't take place. Overall, as far as things stand today, am I right in saying that the Election Commission has very categorically made their stance clear as far as the elections are concerned, that the new census will be followed, delimitations, and that there will be a likely delay? Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct in making that assumption. But with your permission, may I make a comment? I
जी,
forgive me, I cannot see the colleagues and yourself who are sitting there.
जी,
Uh, but I must admire the conviction with which my learned friend is taking a stance that a unconstitutional act, which is that elections should not take place within a period of 90 days, when the Constitution specifically states that. And such an act is supported with so much conviction. I must commend him because, and I would like to be educated as to what other provision of the Constitution my learned friend places reliance on.
No,
Um,
but
that would
Barrister
be.
Saab, as far as this question, as your opinion on the fact that the Election Commission itself is relying on, as I understand, an amendment in the Election Act. And of course, how do you respond to that? That the amendment has in fact been made, and according to the Election Commission, things have changed from the earlier position.
May I, with respect,
जी,
make few things clear. You see, when it comes to the laws, as lawyers, we must appreciate, and for you and the other layman, that the hierarchy of laws require that on the very top is the Constitution, and then every other organ of the state, including the parliament, the judiciary, the executive, because they are created by the Constitution, they must remain strictly within the confines of the Constitution. So, if the parliament were to pass a law, then the law must be in conformity with the Constitution. It cannot be in conflict with the Constitution. To the extent that any law, such as the Election Act 2023, is in conflict with the Constitution, the said law has no value in the eyes of the law. It would be ultra vires, it would be struck down. But if both were to coexist naturally, I am sure that no one would suggest that between the two, the ordinary law passed by the Election Act would prevail the
Barrister
constitutional
Saab,
requirement.
has the Supreme Court taken a position on this? Have they interpreted this have they also taken the interpretation that you're talking about?
I am yet to see whether Elections Act 2023, read in line with the constitutional requirement, has been interpreted or not. But let me assure you that whenever a conflicting position between the
I
constitution
understand that. I
and
understand the
an
legal
ordinary law.
position here. With respect, I understand the legal position here. But my question is that as far as things stand today, as far as the legal process is concerned, with other cases also currently in limbo with the Supreme Court, unfortunately, as far as this case is concerned, as a lawyer, what do you think the future of this case is likely to be? Whatever your legal opinion may be on it, and of course, there is a contrary opinion within the lawyers, whether you agree to it or not.
I'm very clear in my opinion that if the Election Act 2023 were to be challenged, and if it is challenged, it would be between the constitutional requirement to hold elections within a period of 90 days would prevail, and there is nothing else that an ordinary act can prevail upon the Constitution. But to be fair, let me draw your attention to Article 51 of the Constitution to carry forward the debate one step ahead. So, whilst I've pointed out that in any ordinary situation, a law such as the Election Act 2023, in conflict with any provision of the Constitution,
I think you're
would be
talking
struck
about
down.
48.5, which says that
But
elections have to be held within a 90-day period. I understand. And
yes,
now, Gee.
but sorry, forgive me for my ignorance. I was not aware that you're a lawyer, but that makes things easier for us. That then I think you would appreciate Article 51. So that makes things slightly difficult because you see, Article 51 versus the other article of the provision, then that is where it becomes trickier because you cannot strike down one provision on the basis of another. So, what is it that 51 brings into play? 51 says that elections the seats of the National Assembly are to be divided in the provinces in terms of the latest census. So if you look at it this way, then lawfully a claim can be made by the provinces. For example, altogether there are 336 seats in the National Assembly. That number is fixed. But from the previous time, if Punjab had X number of seats, let's suppose 175 seats, this time around, as per the new census, it doesn't have to be that Punjab gets the same seats. So an argument can be made on the basis of Article 51 of the Constitution. Now that would require a debate, but in my opinion, still the requirement to hold elections within 90 days cannot be condoned.
Let me come back to you on that. Ji, Agha Sahab, legality of this is one thing, but politically speaking, as things stand at this time, as far as this alliance is concerned, I think we've had this debate before also. Yeah. It was an alliance of 12, correct me if I'm wrong, 12 political parties. As far as the next elections are concerned, whether they are within 90 days or perhaps 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, what kind of a scenario do you see developing overall?
First of all, let me add one thing. No act is an ordinary act. Every act has a same status within the Constitution and according to the Constitution, and the Constitution has given the power to the Parliament to be a supreme institution for making any law. So we should be very clear about that. Unfortunately, Pakistan, with the amendment of of the 90s, 80s, we have given little power, which has been becoming a very huge power to the Supreme Court to strike down the acts. But if you talk about the 1973 Constitution, the Parliament was the supreme, only the supreme institution that could make any law or strike any law. And let me come to the point. This is a very important particular question. No, Sartre says once, the democracy has its own killer in itself. Okay. And the democracy is the name of the divisions. All 12 parties were together to fight against one party or a person, whosoever he was or he is. No, they are going to election. They will have to contest election independently. Yes, they can go for some seat adjustment. They can go for some alliances, which are, again, I tell you, very tricky. Because if in Punjab, if PMLN goes for the alliance with the Istiqam party, so who would be the loser? Actually, the PML, because Punjab had been a Vatican of the PMLN. So PMLN has to give some seats to the Istiqam party. So this is a very tricky position, and the same in the KPK. JUI is going to have some you can say a loose arrangements with the Khataks. So meaning by JUI will lose some seats. So according to my understanding,
but as I understand, isn't it true that every party is saying that they're going to fight on their own, and there isn't going to be a seat adjustment? If that happens, do you think that,
they will have to go for seat adjustment according to my understanding. Okay. Otherwise, there will be a critical election for many political parties who think they are very strong. Okay. Yes, this is my gut feeling. I may be wrong, I may be right.
As far as the political cost is concerned, at this time, we are seeing a lot of tough decisions being made by the caretaker government. Who do you think is going to pay the political cost of these decisions?
Political cost has, the 12 parties will have to give the political cost. They must know it. People were saying that only PMLN is going to give the cost, but I don't think so.
Do you think this?
Because everybody was in a government.
But this could be, the way that now PPP is choosing to take another stance on this election issue, maybe a way of them trying to, perhaps move aside and perhaps distance themselves, do you think, from this an alliance? Is that true?
Mahrukh, you have asked a very beautiful question, and you have already answered this question. You have answered this question. The PPP, being, it has already a strong base camp.
And it's likely to get that base camp.
Yeah.
It's not going to get a more... It doesn't look like it's going to get. Of course, we saw Zardari Sahab try to make inroads in South Punjab also, but that doesn't really, seems to have had the kind of result that people...
So now People's Party is trying to stay away and saying, okay,
we are not part of it.
We are not part of it. This is what, this is going to be...
This is a political move, you think?
Yeah.
Let me go to Barrister Shabbir Shah. Barrister, we're talking about the law as in, of course, there's a practicality of it, and there is, of course, the theory. In terms of how the Supreme Court recently has taken up certain issues that are unfortunately in limbo, there are decisions that we are still waiting on. We are also looking at the Tosha Khana case. We are also looking at the criticism that is being leveled against the Supreme Court, for remarks that were made by the way. As far as these issues are concerned, this issue, do you think the Supreme Court will take a stance on this? Do you think it's going to come down? Of course, we saw earlier the Supreme Court was involved in the election issue as far as, the provinces were concerned. That already, and there doesn't seem to be a decision on that either.
Mahrukh, you say you're a lawyer, but when I explain for your audience, so forgive me if I'm going too much in detail, but I try to do that because so many people listen to you. So in order to answer your question, you see, it is very unfortunate that we have gotten into this habit of violating the Constitution when the letter and spirit of the Constitution states otherwise. Let me, and you very rightly mentioned yourself that the Supreme Court has already given a decision on an identical issue which pertains to the province of Punjab. Yes, I must remark that what the Supreme Court did was also unfortunate, that this entire Supreme Court was divided on personal issues. And I may be held in contempt for saying that, but it is an open secret. So the reason why the order of the Supreme Court was not implemented, which it should have been implemented, was because there was a clear-cut divide in the Supreme Court. So yes, it was a wake-up call for the Supreme Court. Had the Supreme Court been undivided, had the Supreme Court been on one page, we would not have been where we are. But to me, the law is very clear. You don't need to go to any court for that. I mean, you are a lawyer. Can you think of a justification?
But Barrister Saab, unfortunately, there are, there might be as many lawyers as you who may be on the other side, and they may have, an equal conviction of the other side,
But
being equally right.
Let's pick your brain for a second. Can you think of a reason as to why and what could justify holding the elections after 90 days?
I mean, whatever our personal sentiments may be irrelevant to this issue at this time. As far as issues at this time in Supreme Court stands, like you said yourself, it's a very difficult time, I think, for to be a lawyer also, and I think perhaps also for the Supreme Court as a whole, because the kind of criticism that has been leveled against an institution like that, and then on the overall judicial process is right there in front of you. And my question now is with regard to the Tosha Khana case, that we saw what happened. We've seen the proceedings of the last 2 days also. And the way that it culminated in a lot of things being said against the institution. How do you perceive, what do you think will happen, in your opinion, as a lawyer, in the next few hearings? Because we've seen boycotts also, we've now seen allegations being made, a lot is happening, and I understand that this is a political case, but what do you think is going to happen in the next couple of hearings?
Thank you for saying that in the end, that you understand that it is a political case. But I mean, let's be fair. Let's not blame all of it on the Supreme Court. The poor Supreme Court, and I say poor because the orders are clear. The orders have been passed, but the orders are not implemented. So with utmost regret, I am using this word, that there is a judgment and it is not being implemented with respect to Punjab. But coming back to Tosha Khana case, you see, it's an ordinary case. Normally, whenever in criminal law a conviction happens or a judgment is passed, the higher court always has a power of suspending the judgment and even granting an accused bail. So there is nothing unusual if the judgment is suspended.
The remarks that were made were just by the way, they were not designed to have any effect at all, and that and that ordinarily, in an ordinary case, if this were to happen, they would not have any effect at all on a lower court? in your opinion, as a lawyer?
Let me give you my opinion on the remarks. You are correct that the courts ordinarily should not be passing any remarks, and they are misconstrued. And justice should not only be done, but should be seen to be done. With such remarks or any kind of observations, they are always, and they have the tendency of being misreported. For example, previously in Imran Khan's case, the Honorable Chief Justice had given justice in one day, which was quite unusual, but I liked it because that's how it should be for everybody else. But the kind of remarks which
At the
there
same
were,
time, you
and the
understand that it's
special,
not the same for everybody else, right?
and the special treatment that was extended to him, I think as the court should have been careful. But there should be speedy justice. If it were up to me, cases should be decided in one day, and the same precedent should be followed for everybody else. The treatment that was given to Imran Khan, I mean, I welcomed that. But that other way of looking at it as well, that all citizens are equal before law and are entitled to equal protection of law.
And also, in this case, it is being said that there were some 36 at least adjournments sought by Imran Khan Saab's lawyer and the former Prime Minister's lawyers. And in this case, I don't want to name whichever counsel, having said that they were boycotting because in this one case, the prosecution could not appear. So in that sense, the conduct of judges, the lawyers themselves, and the way that they are pleading cases also, I think it's an interesting comparison, no?
Yes, I think no kind of boycott should have been made. Boycott is always a measure of last resort, and I don't think there was anything that justified boycott. And at the end of the day, that's my personal opinion, but that's about it.
Okay, let me come back to you. Agha Sahab, as far as this case is concerned, like I was saying, we've had, so many adjournments that have been asked from the former Prime Minister's counsel, and we saw what happened in court. As far as this case is concerned, there are other cases pending also. If there is no one to lead the party, I think we've spoken about this, but the closer we come to elections, whenever they may be, we are not looking at any kind of candidates emerging. We are not looking at any kind of movement. Of course, Shah Mahmood Qureshi Saab, who was supposed to be second in command, is also, as I understand, on remand. What kind of a shape, if any, do you think this party? And of course, we've also had a statement, at least from all other political parties, that they don't want or condone any kind of, banning as far as political parties are concerned. So, what shape do you think they'll take?
No party should be banned in Pakistan, and we did it in 70s, and results was nothing. I mean,
and of course, there's a way around
you can come up with any other with name. If you talk about the electioning, because you are absolutely right, there is no electioning I can see. Even elections are even 6 months ago. I mean, 6 months away from us. There is no electioning. This is a very important question. Meaning by either people are losing the interest and the trust on the whole electioning process, or they are waiting to let the dust settle down about this PTI issue.
9th May.
Yes. 36 hearing in one case, but if you remember the foreign funding case, 8 years they kept changing their counsel, they kept asking for more days. This is the style of PTI. And PTI has a very fortunate, because whenever they need the Supreme Court, it is one call away. The High Court is half a call away. So if we talk about the why the Supreme Court is very unfortunate that the decision is lying over there, but nobody accepted that. Because Supreme Court rewrote the constitution in Punjab, a vote of no confidence. Okay, they decided you can poll a vote, but vote would not be counted. This was a rewriting of the constitution. When the Supreme Court kept rewriting constitution, inviting a accused in a Mercedes-Benz with a green number plate car, opening the gates and asking the, I'm pleased to see you, then you are losing your trust and respect among everybody, not anybody, rather everybody. This happened. Unfortunately, this is very unfortunate. So, we will see what if we if we I mean he's out from the Toshakhana case, he's already needed in a cipher case. So
and this is the same cipher case on which Shah Qureshi Sahib is on
yes,
remand.
he's already arrested. So using his arrest as a plea, that one co-accused is already under arrest, so they can put him again in a arrest status. And if you talk about everybody of the PTI is in jail, say how can we cannot they cannot go for the electioning? No, we have seen Nawaz Sharif was in jail. His daughter was in jail. The party contested like that, and go to the 2002 when nobody of the PML leadership was in Pakistan. All was out of Pakistan. They contested and they got 12 seats, National Assembly seats, against complete, you can say, engineering of Musharraf. So political parties already stand against unusual circumstances. So this is a time for the test of PTI, whether it is a political party or a cult group. That is it. So we will see what happens.
Fair enough. I'm going to go to Barrister Shabbir Sahib. Barrister Sahib, as far as this issue, as far as political parties are concerned, we've been earlier talking about this in the studio, that there's a change of heart as far as the PPP is concerned. Yet there hasn't been any move by the PPP also, like you said, to go to the Supreme Court on this issue. So it could be politicking at this time. But overall, do you think that what do you think is the fate of this likely elections going to be if nobody goes to Supreme Court? Election Commission having made its stance pretty clear. The President also now saying that he's going to send it to the Law Ministry. So it seems to be a rather step back, no, by him?
If you ask my heart, I want the elections to happen tomorrow. I mean, I want them to happen in time. The constitutional requirement that there is, that should be followed. But if legally looking at the scenario, looking at how the orders are not implemented, I don't think the elections are going to happen in time, and we're already debating on and finding justifications as to why and how they should take place at a much later time. You mentioned Pakistan People's Party's stance. I mean, I must tell you that as far as I remember, I have not seen for once that Pakistan People's Party has taken any stance which is contrary to the constitution. You must give it to them that they are playing extremely smart. They have never for once, even I don't remember for once, that they would have stated that they support that elections should be held after the constitutional requirement is over. So if
they were
you think
also part of the Council of Common Interest when the decision was taken to go with the delimitation, to go with the new census.
Yes, may I tell you, Council of Common Interest has a specific mandate that it can pass regulations in respect of matters pertaining to and which are part of Schedule 2 or List 2 of the Federal Legislative List. Their census is one such item. CCI doesn't have a mandate to condone a constitutional requirement of 90 days. If CCI were to do that, that would be unconstitutional. CCI has to discuss matters.
I'm not saying that it condoned it, but they did make their intention clear, and they knew when they were agreeing with the new census, it would likely mean a delay in the elections, did they not?
You see, I am not their spokesperson. So and I was privy to a meeting within the CCI, but if they have said that elections should be held after 90 days and they have condoned it, that is a stance which I would not approve of. But if today openly they are saying, and like I told you that previously also, they have never said it. What is wrong about it? All that they are saying is that elections should be held within the time frame. by
whether one says anything's wrong about it or not, but the question is they were part of a government of allies, they were part of 12 parties that were in government, they were part of the Council of Common Interest meeting, they were part of the overall process where they were part of agreeing to the new census, they were part of agreeing to the delimitation process, and they did know that it would likely mean a delay in the electoral process. Whether stepping back now and saying that yes, they do want to, the optics of it, and saying that yes, they are going to go with the constitution, they don't brook any delay, they want the 90-day period, is just that, or does it have more, is it more meaty, does it have real intention at play? Why has no one from the PPP, why has no lawyer from their party gone to court on it? All of these are issues for us to perhaps think about. Thank you so much for...
Let me say, with your permission, I think Pakistan People's Party has been the only party which has followed the constitution. But for a better response, you could have invited someone holding brief for the party, or someone who represents the party. I think they could give you a better response as to why they've had a change of heart. I don't think they've had a change of heart. They've always followed the constitution.
Fair enough. Thank you so much for joining us, Barrister Shabbir Shah Sahab. Thank you for your time. Agha, Iqrar, Haroon Sahab, thank you for being with us today. We're going to be taking a short break, after which we'll be talking about the letter to the G-20 countries on human rights violations, and also on the summit that India seems quite stubborn enough to go ahead with very soon. We'll be right back and we'll be talking about this. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We have with us Shazia, Anwer, Cheema, who is an IR expert. Thank you for being with us. Shazia, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for having me.
With respect to this letter that has been sent, from human rights organizations around the world to G20 countries, we've earlier also spoken about this of course, summit that India seems intent on organizing. Do you think it's going to change anything? Do you think that it has, it will have some power over what India seems adamant to do? Of course, it is something that now the world is reacting to. We are seeing this is a form of reaction, right? Do you agree?
Yes, I totally agree with you, Mahrukh, and the entire power of that letter lies on the rhetoric of that letter. For me, as a researcher, if I see the language of the letter, it itself is a Western admission, which we are trying to reiterate time and again, but we always find ourselves buried under the burden of proof. And we have to prove it, and West asks for the proof, and whenever we try to give the proof or we provide the proof, that proof is always being realized and examined with the confirmation biases, because that proof is coming from me or from you or from Pakistani. So we are bearing the load of this burden of proof and the confirmation biases, and this letter is a blessing for all those who are suffering and for all those who are trying to advocate that there are sufferings. Look at the words like repressive policies and abusive laws. Who could have imagined that West can use these terms? Like, there are repressive policies, and we are articulating it like for many decades that their policies are repressive. And this letter has categorized the policies which are repressive and which are being implemented by abusive laws. And it is written that repressive policies, like there is no freedom of assembly, there is no freedom of speech, freedom of press, there is no freedom of association, and these repressive laws are being implemented by abusive laws. And the abusive laws are, Mahrukh, also being written in the letter, that the unlawful activity prevention law and Jammu and Kashmir public safety law, these two laws are being used as a weapon to purge Kashmiris. So this is the first time that I myself are not feeling the burden of proof. And you can understand what I mean, because whenever we try to, even in the Western world, whenever we try to put the case of Kashmiris, we always have this confirmation bias, because it is coming from Shazia, so she has her personal biases in that. So her proof has to be scrutinized even more. And India always take advantage of that fraction of doubt, that grain of doubt, and has engineered another picture and always selling that picture. And for me, this letter has proved that there is only one picture of India, and that is the picture which is being portrayed in this letter. There is no
Shazia, do
other
you think it's
picture,
going to,
one, two, three, four.
in terms of the effect of it, do you think it's going to have on the G20 countries? What do you see the scenario overall?
I see it will be impactful, and we have seen that the last time India tried to create a theater in Kashmir, the world leaders refrained to join that. They avoid that summit, and I'm talking about the previous summit.
Yes.
So and it was like the few meetings were supposed to be held in Indian occupied Kashmir. So but the world retaliated. They somehow was like they were not comfortable going there. So this is the second time now Indian occupied Kashmir is again on the the front stage, and India is trying to portray another picture of Kashmir, and that picture is not going to be sold, because there is another picture not coming from you and me with our confirmation biases. It is coming from West, and that picture has a powerful impact. And I'm foreseeing that powerful impact, because let me add. I don't know how much time we have. Uh, we are time and again we are trying to tell the Western world that there is an actual genocide going on in Kashmir. And I often give the Gregory Stenson's genocide indicators as well, that these indicators are one by one being practiced in Kashmir, and now the persecution one is being practiced. I think this is the reality. This is not again my proof or your proof. This is the actual proof. This is the truth inside the truth. Like Western world is now do not want to be on the wrong side of the history.
Right,
They
fair
want to
enough.
be on the right side of the history.
Let's hope that we see the kind of reaction we want, and I hope these words resonate, in our hearts, that perhaps we will see them being on the right side of history. Thank you so much for your time, Shazia. Thank you for your very valuable input. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for joining us, Agha, Iqrar, Haroon Sahab, Barrister Shabbir, Shah, Shazia, Anwer, Cheema. Of course, Pakistan has always stood with our Kashmiri brethren, and we remain hopeful, and we make all effort, we continue to make all effort, standing resiliently with their cause. Let's hope that we see the kind of reaction, like Shazia said, perhaps this is now resonating with the world. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.